Sir. Yeah.
Alright, already told goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Alright, already told goes on all night till the morning. We dream so long. Anybody ever wonder when they would see the sun? Just remember when you come up. The show goes on. Have you ever had the feeling that you was being had? Don't that shit that make you mad? They treat you like a slave, put chains all on your soul and put whips up on your back. They be lying through they teeth, hope you slip up off your path. I don't switch up, I just laugh, put my kicks up on they desk, unaffected by...
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host. As always, every single week, we've got Evan and we've got Logan Fulmer in the building, and we've got a nice little show to talk about, a couple things to get to. But before we do, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, also turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or update content or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio. Boys, it got me thinking. I'm a little sad, right? We kind of talked about it last week, but next week we won't be having a live State of the Jungle show. It'll be the first time we haven't had a live State of the Jungle show for what, a year?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Over a year. It's been a long time since we've not had a live in studio show, but fear not, we'll still have something coming to you guys at that time slot. We also will be back the following week for State of the Jungle, and Daniel will be back on the show soon enough as well. But guys, I want to get into sort of the topic of discussion that kind of took place with a misleading, I guess, tweet from Ian Rappaport. Or maybe it wasn't that misleading, but it definitely got people talking. And it was Joe Burrow talking about the morality of his football future and how, essentially what Joe Burrow I felt he was trying to say was, you do start to begin to question your playing career or how long you have in this game when you have injuries that start to pile up like the ones Joe Burrow's has. We're talking about ACL tears, talking about calf strains. We're talking about wrist ligament tears. The guy hasn't had it easy. He hasn't had it easy. And I think when we look at it from that angle, that Joe Burrow has not had it easy, I think we can grow to appreciate what he was trying to get across when he made the statement that he did. And I think it's a fair statement that he made. I think it's very understandable why someone would, start to question, how long do I have in this game? How long can I play in this game? Listen, we thought Andrew Luck would play forever. This guy was talking about on the trajectory to be the greatest quarterback of all time. All the people who nobody's had a greater start to their football career like Andrew Luck. So I understand the angle, Joe Burrow was coming from. And I kind of want to hear what you guys have to say. I want you guys to weigh in on a little bit. Logan, let me hear from you. What were your thoughts on the comments of Joe Burrow talking about the morality of his football playing career?
Yeah, I think, like most of the time when Joe talks, I think people try to take more of it than they should. But I mean, just when you look at his whole career, obviously committed to Ohio State, had to fight for so much there, had to take his time. And then he finally thinks he's going to get his time, and then boom, he's hurt. Now he's got to transfer. Now he's got to fight for all that spot. Now he's got to work his all the way up with LSU. And then he comes in the NFL, gets hurt again, so all these things have happened to him. And, it's fair to question. It's like, hey, man, I'm here. This is my dream. Now, shit, how much time do I have left here? That doesn't mean it's necessarily like, how much time do I have left? Like my clock's running out. It's just, you have to appreciate, the moment when you're in it. And so many people fail to do that. And I think that's really all he's trying to say is like, he's been through so much. There's so much hard work and effort that's put into achieving your dreams of his dream of playing in the NFL and everything. And now he's here. Now you just have to appreciate it. He's got to do what he's going to do to be able to play, to have success, to have fun, to enjoy life. Like there's just so much more to the conversation than just simply how much time do I have left in the NFL? Am I about to be done? Am I going to be Andrew Luck? Whatever it is. He's just simply, I'm here. This is what I've always wanted. How long do I have to really cherish my time here in the NFL? I think that's really all it is.
Yeah, I definitely understand the intrigue around the phrasing that he used, right? Because mortality obviously kind of lends itself to being like, oh, the death of his career, or the, and I think it's not mortality in the sense of death. It's mortality in the sense of, like you talked about, he was a very, very successful high school quarterback, went and got recruited by Ohio State, then was very successful at LSU, came into the NFL and immediately had success here as well. I think it's easy for us to remember, again, like Joe Burrow is constantly this crazy machine that just finds a way to make the play and keep the play alive and constantly be running and putting himself on the line. And I think that's more of what he's talking about is, I know I'm not invincible. I know I'm not a god, right? Like Hercules had to have that moment where he's like, hey, I am mortal as much as I might be like, part god. So Joe Burrow is a lot like Hercules, right? Part god a little bit, but yeah, he's still mortal. He's still human. And I think when he's talking about the injuries, I think he's talking more about that, where I'm not Superman. I don't have to worry about fighting for my life and my job, like you said, trying to be the starting quarterback in high school, trying to get recruited, trying to get on the field at Ohio State, trying to be successful at LSU and prove that you're worth the top first round draft pick and then the number 1 draft pick ultimately. And I think it's finally kind of dawned on him a little bit that, hey, like I can not ease up on how hard I try, but like redirect my attention and my energy into keeping my body fresh instead of constantly grinding myself into the ground to compete and be more aggressive with that. I think he's going to be cautious about how he approaches things. But again, I don't think this is like Andrew Luck press conference. Hey, I don't know if I can play this game for much longer type deal, or Ben Roethlisberger being like, "Oh, I only have so much time left to play in this game." It's I think it's more of like, "Hey, I am human. I get injured too. I maybe need to dial it back just a little bit and kind of rethink how I approach injuries and everything else." And he himself kind of elaborated on that a little bit more after. So I don't think it's anything to do with the end of the career. I definitely read this into like, "Hey, I am human. I get injured. I get hurt, and I need to be more mindful of that."
Yeah, I agree. That being said, let's keep Joe Burrow upright.
Yeah.
Let's keep Joe Burrow healthy.
Please.
Let's keep Joe Burrow playing. I think we're all excited about what the potential of Joe Burrow could be with a healthy season, when he does have a full training camp, when he doesn't have calf strains, when he doesn't have appendix, when he doesn't have ACL tears. I mean, you continue to stack it up. The list just continues to grow, right? But how do we keep Joe Burrow upright? Well, that starts with having an offensive line, a stable offensive line, a consistent offensive line. And how do you do that? You do that by knowing who your starting offensive linemen are going to potentially be. So that brings me to the next topic. Trent Brown was playing a little bit at guard. Now I know what Evan's going to say. Guys, I don't like to make too much about it. It's what? It's June 12th, and we're talking about.
I think there's something to be gleaned here.
Wow. Okay. I'm all on board. We're getting a little some Evan nuggets, if you will. But no, I want to remind everybody.
My nuggets.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. I want to remind everybody, and I kind of alluded to this a couple of State of the Jungle episodes a while back, and I said, people forget Trent Brown played guard for the 49ers. He played guard for the 49ers, and he made a transition to tackle, and he did a very, very good job when he did so. And so, like, I think that there could be a potential conversation to be had about maybe Trent Brown playing guard. And then people say, well, what happens to Cordell Volson? Well, I don't know. I'm in the business of putting your best starting 5 offensive linemen out there. I don't care what it looks like. Like, I think that the Bengals need to do right by this offense, do right by Joe Burrow. And how you do that is you put the best player out there is going to be. If maybe Amarius Mims is jumping off the charts right now and in practice with shorts on right now, maybe they're like, holy crap, this guy might be ready a lot sooner than we think, or sooner than we had hoped. Maybe. What would an offensive line look like if you get Marius Mims, Trent Brown on the right side together? What does that look like then? That becomes a fortress at that point. It'd be large.
Yeah.
It will be hard to make your mark if you're a defensive line on that type of an offensive line. And so I certainly see the vision, and I certainly see that there could be some smoke there, right? I think that there could be some smoke there, and I think it could make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. And maybe that's why Trent Brown, we hadn't heard from him until now. Maybe it's, the coaches would know better than we would, right? Maybe they know. Maybe they feel like that's the move that they want to make. And maybe it makes sense. I certainly think it makes sense. I think it could make sense. But Logan, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I also think, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I think right now, with everybody just in shorts and a t-shirt, this should be the time Marius Mims is truly looking the part and probably better than, some of these veterans around him because he's young. He's a freak athlete. He moves extremely well. Like this should be the time that he is looking like a all pro tackle, because he looks apart. He's athletically, he's got everything you want to look like that. But again, pads aren't on yet. He hasn't really gone up against any of these type of players yet. So yes, this should be the time if he looks good. If we were already a little bit worried about Amarius Mims, things would be terrible. But we're not, so I think it's a boost of confidence to him. It's, hey, a little pat on the back, like, hey, this is what we expect. You're looking good. Let's, give you the glimpse of this, you are truly still fighting for something. Because, if he just comes in and feels like he's already just accepting a backup role, then, maybe some other issues will be coming about. But again, it's still very early. I think the possibility of Trent Brown playing guard, he's a large man. I don't know what the largest guard in NFL history would be, but he's got to be up there for sure. But I think a lot more would be made of it too if for some reason he came out and he was playing left guard too, because that's where Volson plays.
Right.
So obviously you would assume if he plays right guard, Kappa would just go play left guard. That's what the common sense move would say. But it's also just, Trent Brown's been hurt. Maybe they're just trying to find ways to keep him on the field. Or, hey, if he misses time and then Mims comes in and plays well, we want to find a way to get you on the field. There's a lot of underlying reasons of why it could be happening. I do think it's a good thing that it's happening regardless of what the reason is, having that flexibility, even if it's just in a pinch or an extreme emergency of him playing guard. It obviously makes the line better if you can just give the 5 most talented people on the field, which should always be the goal, like Malik said, but it's still very early. I'm not going to get too excited or too, into it yet, but I think it's good at the end of the day still.
Yeah, I think there's 2 parts to the Trent Brown playing right guard discussion. I think the first part is I think that says more about the depth at the position, right? Because if Kappa is to get hurt, if Volson is to get hurt, these interior guys, you're looking at Jackson Carman, Cody Ford, and Jackson Kirkland, right? And I do want to note that that, like you said, if you have someone who has to come in and then you bring him back, and suddenly again Amarius Mims is playing well, you don't want to bench him, and that can help you find other ways to get on the field. Now, obviously, it's not Madden, and you don't have, an 85 overall tackle and you just slide him to center and he just plays well there, right?
So you're saying our tackles are rated 85? Yeah, I thought Orlando Brown might have been a 90 overall. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying
we're getting that clear.
No, I'm just saying that I just caution against anybody saying, hey, we can just slide this guy over here, which is obviously why they're trying him there right now, right guard. And what you said is significant, that it's not left guard. And why that's significant to me is, again, if you look at a place where you can upgrade just on the starters on the offensive line, I don't feel like Alex Kappa is that square, like, hey, this is the guy. It's Cordell Volson. Now, when you look back at Alex Kappa, he has played right guard his entire time in the NFL, has not taken snaps anywhere else. When you look at Trent Brown, he has played left and right tackle, has only played guard on field goal snaps. That's it. He hasn't played actual guard snaps. So this is obviously something where you might be able to kick him inside and use his size and his good balance for that.
Who's this?
Trent Brown.
He played guard for the Niners for a little
Played
bit.
left tackle. I double checked. I triple checked. I swear. I'm looking. I got it all right now. I promise. Logan's over here looking at me. He saw me cycle through like 3 times.
Okay, you continue. I'm going to pull it
I
up.
promise you, it's all left and right tackle. But that's kind of the point that I'm getting at too, is that Alex Kappa and Trent Brown have both not played left guard before. So there's not necessarily that automatic upgrade at Cordell Volson. So again, I do think this is significant for the sense of like, hey, he can be the backup guy. So you're not relying on Cody Ford, Jackson Carman, these other guys if things get a little bit tight, but also knowing that you have that good backup. But I don't think this is like, oh, hey, he's in real competition to take Alex Kappa's job or anything. I think this is just kind of feeling around what you can do, because obviously he can play right tackle, he can play left tackle. So if he can play guard too, like that's the ultimate swing lineman you can get, and that's a great deal. So I think it's about finding fit, about figuring out the backup position, but I don't see any of the starters getting, necessarily dethroned unless they start moving him to left guard and saying, hey, how does this work for you again? Which, like, hey, 1 different position, 2 different side of the line. So that's kind of difficult, but obviously he has the right left tackle versatility. So maybe he has that in him.
So.
Yeah, yeah, I might have been a little wrong on that one.
I had to look. I had to check. I'm not sitting here saying I knew off the top of my head.
Here's where my confusion came in. He played guard a little bit at Florida.
Yes.
And that's what he was drafted. When they drafted him, that's what he was tagged as, a guard. He was practicing which is wild, right? He was practicing majority of his time when he was drafted by the Niners with the guards, with the interior offensive
So at least
line.
he does have experience playing there. Yeah.
Right. And he started his last 2 games for the 49ers. And one of those games being, I believe, was against the Broncos when Von Miller was there. But initially, when he was drafted, he was thought to be a guard. So I stand corrected. Wow, I'm wrong.
Well, you were also kind of right because now he's playing guard now. So it's like,
hopefully.
Even when you're wrong, you're Malik Wright. So
there we go. Sometimes, but damn. Okay, checkmate. So let's talk about the starting offensive line for the Bengals a little bit more in depthly, guys. What state do you guys feel like the offensive line is in right now? Because like on paper, you got all these people coming out with these projections. The Bengals are going to have one of the top offensive lines in football this year. They drafted a big guard that's 6'8", 300+ pounds, and they have another right tackle that's been a veteran in the National Football League who is of the same stature. All of the Bengals tackles, right, or guards, we'll see, are of that 6'8", 300+ pounds range. How do you guys feel right now? What's the temperature on State of the Jungle right now when it comes to the Bengals offensive line room? Like, how do you guys actually feel? Are you guys confident? Are you nervous? Because I'll be honest with you, when the Bengals first drafted Marius Mims, right, the questions did come up about his availability.
Yeah.
The questions did come up about his availability. You're talking about 7 games to kind of pick from. Now, those 7 games, he looked damn good, right? He looked damn good in those 7 games. But let's not act like that's not a question mark. It's not a question mark. Listen, I'm a fan of putting the best 5 offensive linemen out on the football field, whatever that might look like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes, right? I think sometimes the Bengals we've looked at it and we've always felt like maybe their offensive line wasn't even NFL caliber starting.
Yeah.
Right. We're like, okay, well, you're kind of just putting the best, not even the best guys. You're putting guys out on the football field, and maybe you have like 1 or 2 offensive linemen you feel pretty good about, maybe. But like, I really feel like right now, this is a year where offensive line could be a strength for the team. You think about it, right? You have your left tackle situation, and I'm assuming here. I'm just assuming that Mims can probably play both in a pinch if you need him to. You ideally want him to stay at the right tackle spot, right? You got Trent Brown, who we know has played both. Now you have the depth when it comes to the guard position, whether it be a Cordell Volson, whether it be a Cordell Volson. You got Alex Kappa, who is projected to be a starting guard for the Bengals. You still got Cody Ford. I know how that's Evan's favorite player. And then you Jackson Kirkland. You have all these different pieces. You draft a center like Matt Lee. You have to feel good overall about this Bengals. You have to feel good overall about this Bengals offensive line this year. At least I think you do.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you guys think. What's the temperature? Because it's easy kind of get caught up. I don't know if this is me making this noise. I apologize if it is.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out.
I guess this is. It's easy to get caught up on all the headlines and all the press clippings and all the top 10 lists that are coming out. But what are you guys' thoughts on the Bengals offensive line room as a whole? Let's really, really dissect this for a second. Let's really talk about it, because like that's what people come to State of the Jungle for. They want to get different perspective. They don't want us to sell them bullshit. They want us to tell them, do we think the offensive line sucks? Do we have concerns? And if we have concerns, where are those concerns? To me, another position of concern, I would say, for me, is backup center, right? Because I feel like center is one of those positions you could only really develop if you get the experience. Right now, you're looking at guys that are backing up Ted Karras. You got Matt Lee, obviously, who's a terrific center at the college football level. I thought he struggled at points in time, being an anchor at times. But I think that from a technicality standpoint, the guy is very technical. His hands are always in the right place. One you feel really good about, you're excited about. I know that was a lot of Bengals people's favorite pick from a value perspective. You still got Trey Hill too, who's Logan's guy. But
Malik distancing himself from
that. No. That's big Logan guy. But
definitely Logan.
Definitely 100%. But what are your thoughts? I know I've been kind of long-winded a little bit on that, but Logan, let's hear from you.
I think it just depends how you want to look at it. I think there's, no doubt that when you look at the starting 5 offensive linemen with Cordell Volson currently slotted in, it's a well above average group. I think there's, like Evan said, there's still a pretty clear hole at that left guard position. I don't necessarily want to call it a hole because Cordell Olsen can continue to get better, and he's provided plenty of good games in the past. It's just the inconsistencies, which is typical for a young player and a young player coming from FBS school. Like he's been good, all things considered, but we still need to see him take the jump and get better and keep developing, which last year, was unfortunately not the case. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen this year.
Right.
But I mean, I think the only worries from the offensive line just start to stack up when you look at the depth perspective of things, which, for some teams is a lot more of an issue. For others, it's not. Sometimes teams' offensive lines will stay healthy all year, and it's not an issue at all whatsoever. Some teams go through 17 different starting offensive lines a year, different combinations, whatever it is, so it depends how you want to look at it. I think the depth is 100% something to be worried about, especially on the interior side of things. So it depends how you want to look at it. If you want to look at the starters, I'm very confident in the starters to give Joe Burrow the best offensive line he has. But as soon as one thing goes wrong, then it's like, okay, now I'm a little scared because it's either whether it's Trent Brown sliding in and Mims coming in. There's something new we haven't seen before. There's going to be something new or that we haven't seen before if somebody goes down immediately. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a scary thing. And we just talked about the morality of Joe Burrow's football career. You don't really want to have the mortality.
Yeah, we want to make sure there's nothing evil about Joe Burrow playing football. There's something beautiful, something spiritual about Joe Burrow playing football.
It's just that's when the issues start to come up. It's just the depth. And I think that's no secret to anybody. But they've hit some waiver claims. Max Sharping, I believe, was a waiver claim a few years ago. There's going to be plenty offensive linemen cut. That's why waivers happen year in and year out.
Right.
Maybe we'll find another guy that they just like a little more. Maybe, it'll be a vet that's cut for a young guy, whatever it is. Or maybe it's a young guy they liked in the draft last year, the year before. There's still, plenty of time to bring in bodies that they might prefer or just are more traditional guards or a more traditional tackle. Like, let's say if we cut Trey Hill or something and they go claim another guard, a true guard, then things start to kind of settle down a little bit. There's still a lot of time before, the week one depth chart rolls around. Very confident in the starting unit. After that, I get a little scared.
No, I think you nailed it. Starters, absolutely. You feel like, hey, this is again, going back to how many NFL offensive lines out there can say that they feel good about where they are or above average at 4 out of 5 spots, right? That's maybe 4 or 5 teams, right? And this is not to say Cordell Olsen, like you said, is bad. He is absolutely fine for being an FCS 4th round older player, right? Like that is, I'm not trying to be like, oh yeah, this guy who's the 4th rounder is now going to become a 1st round Hall of Famer guy, right? Like we already had that talk from some other people once upon a time, but I don't.
Okay, Shams.
I don't want to bag too hard on Cordell Olsen, right? I want to give him his due, but again, the starters just by themselves, absolutely. I think that's a great unit. Again, it comes back to the depth where Jackson Kirkland, Cody Ford.
How do you feel about that though?
It worries me because there you could probably count on one hand. I'm guessing here, entirely speculative, but I bet you could count on one hand the number of times that a team has had an entire 5 starting offensive linemen start all the entire season 2 years in a row, right?
Yeah.
And the Bengals did that last year. So the chances that they go
again,
17 games without a single guy getting hurt, I think is really unrealistic, right? Just playing the odds. So like you said, that's the advantage of, hey, if Trent Brown can play right guard, hey, we have all this time, we have all these reps. Let's see if Amarius Mims can play a little bit of left guard. Like you see what you have, and that's not even to displace them or make things harder on them, but it's just to understand a little bit about what your options are and what you can do if and when someone gets hurt eventually, what that answer is going to be. And I think Matt Lee is probably going to have a little bit more. I just have more faith in him and his upside than I do with Trey Hill.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not, just like with Cordell Olsen, I'm not going to be like, oh, this 7th rounder is going to come in here. And if God forbid Ted Karras goes down for a game or two, the 7th rounder is going to come in and just kick ass, right? I'm cautiously optimistic. So I agree. Veteran depth, especially at guard, would be awesome. That interior of the offensive line is going to be a need for the backup position and then for the starting position for all 3 spots in the next 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Depending on who they want to bring back. So it's definitely somewhere where they, for the near future and beyond, definitely need to strongly consider the talent on their interior.
Yeah, the only kind of like, I don't want to say like I'm hopeful about this guy or anything, but I think we've kind of danced around him a little bit. Jackson Kirkland,
People were high on him.
Yeah, and because people were pretty surprised he went undrafted.
Right.
And for whatever reason he went undrafted. But I mean, he was a pretty above average college football player too. Like he played left guard and left tackle, got some versatility there. I think maybe that just might be a guy that they're, like you said, just higher on than most,
Could be their new Hakeem Adeniji type guy where they're just like, hey, we're going to have you around here, Deontay Smith, for a little bit and just move you around and
see where you stick.
Right.
I mean, he gave up 3 sacks his 3 years as a starter in college. Like
I think that's valuable. I don't want to treat him like a known commodity. Right. I don't want to be like, well, at least they have Jackson, because I haven't seen him get on the NFL field.
I just think that's how maybe that's the only person I look at that like maybe they see
There's
something
some upside,
there.
right?
Yeah, more than some of these other guys. We kind of know what they are. We know what they were in college. But Kirkland was a pretty decent prospect, went undrafted for whatever reason, and then we don't really know what he's been on the NFL. So I think that's the only player you can kind of look at that like we don't know, he might be better than we think. Maybe the Bengals are higher on him the most. That's about the only guy depth pieces that I think that's a guy to watch in preseason. I'll say that.
So you brought up a guy, Jackson. I don't want to talk about Jackson Kirkland. I want to talk about Jackson Carman. Guys, I really think that we really need to discuss a little bit more. And I hate to, I know nobody loves to talk about offensive line, and this is probably like the boring part, if you will. But like I do want to talk about it, right? And the idea that I have is I think that Jackson Carman, I think we could realistically see a team come calling for him. This is an offensive driven league.
You get the Billy Price deal for him?
I think you could. I don't know. Billy Price had that deal. Billy Price, that was a fleece. That was a fleece.
Maybe we can get the Carlos Dunlap deal for him.
Because
just get somebody else.
Listen, in an offensive line driven league, somebody's got to see value in Jackson Carman, right? I mean, this is a guy that in his respective draft class, that what I kept hearing from people you talk to, it's kept saying, oh, he has some of the smoothest feet you've seen in this class. Somebody might come calling for him. This is an offensive driven league. This is a league where teams are all trying to find offensive line that could help them, whether it be week 1 or week 15. At some point or another, they're probably going to say to yourselves, hey, listen, we need to put ourselves in a position that, offensive line is not an issue for us. And maybe they'll say, hey, the Bengals misused him. The Bengals didn't do right by him. The Bengals had him playing guard. The Bengals had him playing tackle. They thrusted him in all those spots. Somebody might turn on the Bills game and say, you know what, Jackson Carman, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And if you're going to turn on the Bills game, you might come away thinking Jackson Carman could be a guy. I just think that I think people sometimes, I think we give front offices a little too much credit, just to be honest with you. And it's front offices. Of course, we should give them a lot of credit. But sometimes these guys, especially if you get a GM that's desperate, just trying to find a guy that could potentially help his team, they will literally scrape through the league and they'll say, oh, look at this guy's tape. This is the guy that could help us. And he just didn't get a chance in Cincinnati because they'll make up whatever excuse they need to in their head. Hey, fell out of favor, right? Struggled his rookie year. Mm-hmm. But we saw him during the Super Bowl run. Look how he performed at spots for the Bengals. At one point or another, you could say he was one of the Bengals' better offensive line. Remember, there were
just like, honestly, the way they talk themselves into Cody Forward, they say, hey, we like this guy before the draft. Hey, he played college right next to our left tackle. He can play left guard. They have good communication. What a better backup could you have? And
someone will try to make that connection. It happens in the league all the time. Right. That's why some of these guys stick around and hang around for so long. And we're like, how does this guy still have a job after all these years? He sucks. You want to know why Bobby Hart? Right? Bobby Hart kept getting jobs because guess what? He made his claim to fame in Cincinnati. Regardless of what people think, this is a guy that got an extension with the Giants, and this is a guy that got an extension, I believe, once or twice with the Bengals? Mm-hmm. Right? So there's going to be some team out there that's going to say, there's got to be something good about him. There's going to be somebody out there that's going to say, and this is how front office people work. They'll say this, you know what? I think that this kid could work. Hey, call the Bengals up. I think this kid could work. Let me tell you why. Because I think that I think things went wrong. He should have never went to Cincinnati. People forget he grew up there. There's probably so many different distractions. And you know what? They're going to get on the phone with the agent. The agent's going to say, that's exactly what happened. He had no business playing in the same place
The
that he's
O-line
from.
coach hated them.
The O-line coach hated him. They you should know the stories of why they didn't want this guy. And you know what? Some team is going to say, just like we thought. Hey, let's call the Bengals up. And you know that defensive tackle that we were about to that defensive end we were about to cut that we really, really like, but we have a stacked defensive end room. One man's trash is another man's what? Treasure. Some team might call and say, we believe we can fix them. Some team called and said, Billy Price, short arms, turtle arms, all of that gets destroyed, obliterated each and every single play. Billy Price was getting obliterated like my friends at a bar on a Saturday night in college. That's what was happening to Billy Price on a regular on the football field. But some team, that team being the New York Football Giants, said, hey, we're going to give up a quality defensive tackle in B.J. Hill who showed us what he could do. Every time B.J. Hill got a chance with the Giants, he performed.
Yeah.
He performed. But some team is going to say, you know what? I don't want that. So that said defensive end or that corner, right? That corner that we keep talking about week after week. Is he worth sacrificing to get an offensive line that we think is salvageable? That's how the league works. Every single league from the XFL, the CFL, everybody's looking for offensive line. Everybody's looking for offensive line. Do you know how many area scouts are dedicated to NFL teams to just try to find offensive line anywhere? It's the reason why teams might take just an athlete or a guy that has the size, and we say, you know what, we'll bring you in for a training camp body because everybody's trying to find that next offensive lineman. Everybody's clamoring for that. Everybody is. It's the reason why a guy like Fred Johnson, and we know how he struggled, is still on a roster with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's the reason why, at least last I checked, Prince Watagano from Auburn, right? He's stuck around the league, and he still might be in the league because people are going to, if you have size, if you're big, if we think that there's something salvageable there, we are going to take a chance on you. Like, it really is not as complicated as people think. We just saw, I understand this guy's a freak athlete, but what's the defensive tackle in this completely different position? We just saw the Bills sign
a wrestler
yeah, to play defensive tackle, and they're like, oh yeah,
never played football before.
Never played football before, but we got to take a chance on this guy because he's got the intangibles that we look for. This stuff happens all the time, and it might work out. We've seen stories where things might work out. We see teams are always looking for pass rush, always looking for corners, always looking for offensive line help. It's the reason why I feel like every single year, this team has a workout with the interception leader for CFL, right? Teams are always looking. Mm-hmm. Cameron Wake was a CFL story. One of the better pass rushes the Dolphins have had. CFL story. So teams are always Brock, yeah. Teams are always looking to say, how can we get the most out of said position group? How can we add to our room? And offensive line is a starving position in the National Football League, which is mind-boggling to me that a guy like Dalton Risner sat out there as long as he did and nobody came clamoring for him. There had to be more to the story than what we talked about. Yeah. Because everybody that I talked to my guy Benjamin Albright. I asked, why the hell is this guy still sitting out there? I don't know. Every angle, every corner I turn to, I try to ask people, why is Dalton Risner still sitting out there? Because
he's not sitting out there anymore.
He's with the Vikings now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, beforehand, because we're talking about them being an offensive line needy league, nobody had an answer as to why that guy was sitting out there. And this guy was begging for a job on Twitter. Yeah. You can never have enough good offensive linemen. So I'm not of the belief. Listen, I think the Bengals might be done with in Jackson Carman. But I also want to know, will they be willing to say when? Right? Because there were teams that were calling, just to let y'all know, for John Ross. There were teams that were calling for John Ross, right? And the Bengals are like, we'll be slow-footed. We want to see what this guy has. And I get it. New regime. They want to see what was what. But like, I think part of being a capable organization is also knowing when to cut your losses. Mm-hmm. And I think cutting your losses is identifying that, hey, this tackle that we drafted that we were all high on maybe just didn't pan out. So, if I'm in that situation, I would, and I was another team, you'd probably think about Jackson Carman and like, this is a guy that could be our next potential right tackle, left tackle, whatever you view him as. I don't know. Maybe you view him as a guard. I have no idea. We got our guy Parker Blake in the comment section. Appreciate you, Parker. He's like, I'm available.
Hey.
He said, I'm available to be an offensive line exclusive scout. Cheap too. And we got to get Parker on the show sometime, man. That's what we got to do.
Fun way to do that. It's off season. It's a good time.
100%, man. I'm always down to talk a little bit of offensive line. Always down to talk a little bit of offensive line. You know what we haven't talked about enough lately, guys? We haven't talked enough about Jermaine Burton. We haven't talked enough about Mike Gesicki. We haven't talked to, because those clips started coming out and people are like, oh, Jermaine Burton looking good. Demon home. That's what people say. Demon home. But people were saying Mike Gesicki and Joe Burrow seem to be developing a nice connection, a little bit, nicer rapport. And I think it's good. Yeah. I think it's good, man. I think it's good. I think I'm excited about this group. It was really refreshing to hear people talk about, I forgot one of the coaches, but they were talking about Yoshi Voss, and they were saying how Yoshi was 100% going to be a part of the rotation. I don't want those guys kind of forgotten about. I don't want those guys kind of falling to the backside of them because at some point or another, it could be week 2, could be week 15, could be in the playoff. Who knows? You might want to call on that guy. You might need to call on that guy. Injuries, nicks, and certain things happen. But at the end of the day, you want to see those guys flourish. You want to see those guys flourish in this offense. So I guess I want to ask you this, right? For me, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect from a guy like T. Higgins, I would say, this year, especially with it being a weird contract year. So I wonder, I really do wonder, who are you guys expecting to step up into that role? I can't say with confidence right now that I'm like, okay, T. Higgins is go hung. He's going to 100% step in. He's going to be great for the Bengals, be that true number 2 that we're looking for. But so who are you guys looking for the Bengals to step up, consistently and help out and emerge in that role? I know we have our thoughts. I know we've talked at length about who that could potentially be, but I want to hear from you guys as we're starting to get, before we're like, oh, it's early in this football season, blah, 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 blah. But now we're really starting to get into the thick of things. We're about to get into the mandatory mini camp and all that kind of stuff like that. And we're gonna have some questions to answer very, very soon. But who are you guys expecting to step up as another weapon? We already know what we're expecting from Jamar Chase, but who else are you guys looking at?
I mean, definitely you're looking at that rotation of Burton, Charlie Jones, and Yoshi Voss. And we know that Yoshi kind of came onto the scene last year, and going into the year, I think it was fair to expect that Charlie Jones might get a little bit more run with Jamar and T kind of manning the outside positions pretty consistently. And it was nice to see when Yoshi was running around out there, especially in the red zone, doing the scramble drill there against Arizona, catching that touchdown in the back of the end zone. It was nice to see him feel that space and that leverage and kind of have that understanding and be on the same page with Joe Burrow. Hopefully they can continue to build on that relationship, especially if, God forbid, T or Jamar were to miss any time. But instead of having to put Trent Irwin out there and hope for the best, now you can rely a little bit more on some of these guys that you feel like have more opportunity to reach a higher floor, a higher level of production than you could get from an aging Trent Irwin. And that's not to besmirch his name at all. It's just to accentuate the excitement we have for some of these guys who are coming into their second year, have been working hard in the off season. And I think you're going to see a lot of these guys kind of rotating in. Last year they kept, I can't remember if it was 7 or 6 wide receivers. I think it was because they got rid of Stanley Morgan, right? Yeah. And that was when everybody thought he was going to stick around. I thought he was going to stick around for special teams. But yeah, I think that Charlie, Yoshi Voss, and Burton are all going to be very much kind of sharing that wide receiver 3 role, though they'll play different roles just in terms of snaps. But yeah, obviously they're going to have to help out a lot. And obviously Gesicki too. If you're talking about, like Joe Burrow was talking about in the other day in the press conference, how they want to dictate more of what the defensive line's like and what they look like. Running out there in 12 personnel is a great way to do that and force them to kind of be off kilter a little bit, maybe be unexpected, and then have to try and adapt to you in a limited amount of time before the snap, right? So that's one way that they could do it. Yeah, all these kind of back end offensive weapons. It's obviously easy for me to say the defensive weapons, like the secondary. I'd love to see some, whether that's Dax Hill, whether that's Josh Newton, just something to make me feel a little bit better because I'm very optimistic about the depth behind the wide receivers. But spots like corner, obviously, defensive tackle, it'd be really like just a breath of fresh air for them to get one guy who can just really give you 500 good snaps at either of those positions.
Yeah,
100%.
I think in the receiver room, I'm kind of looking forward to it just because the league has kind of gone to the running back by committee approach and
Mhm.
using the running backs to their strengths. But I think the Bengals can really do that with the receiver room this year. We have a bunch of different kind of guys with different kind of styles that can succeed in a number of different ways. Whether T's here healthy or not, you still have the abilities, you still have the down the field, you still have the jump ball, you still have the slot, you have
Mhm.
all things covered. And just when you have that, you can get more creative, you can get more diverse, you can create different looks, you can, create different route combos and schemes and everything that goes with it without, kind of being too predictable. And I think that's the fun thing about having all these options at receiver and being so deep in a room and so talented. And that's why that stuff is so valuable. I don't really know like if who would truly step up and be the two and lead in, I guess, in snap percentage per se. But I think they're all going to be productive. When you can play players to their strengths, you're going to see them thrive. And whether that's their 5 snaps a game, whether that's 20 snaps a game for one guy, or whether it's, matchup dependent, whatever it is, when you have confidence and having just to throw anybody out there, whatever role they're good at, good things are going to come. Obviously, they're going to play off a chase. Obviously, they're going to put the ball in Joe's hands. So, as of right now, I'm pretty confident in everybody in that receiver room. There's not
Mhm.
anybody that I'm like, man, I don't really
If
want
they get
to.
on the field, you're not like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, So I think that's
So
that's a good
you're
thing.
confident in Kwame Lassiter?
Well, yeah, sure,
That'll
but
do it.
I don't really think he's gonna be on the
You're confident in
field.
Shedrick Jackson?
That stop.
Bo Jackson blood, baby.
Hell yeah. You know why? Because he's got the intangibles. He's got the
He's got the NFL bloodline.
He's got the NFL bloodline.
Yeah.
He's got the it factor, the thing that makes me excited. No, but in all seriousness, guys, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. Guys, remember on this YouTube channel, you don't just get Bengals, you also get UFC picks. You also just get my opinion on the NBA Finals. As in Jaylen Brown is the face of the Boston Celtics. And you also get me, talking about a various host of other things as well. So make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications. But of course, the reason why you guys tune in is for State of the Jungle with me and the boys. So, I think we're all looking forward to this upcoming football season and everything that is to come with it, especially with the various weapons. I think this is the first year in a long time where I just feel a sigh of relief. I feel a sigh of relief. I don't feel like I'm looking at any sort of position group and I'm like, man, I just don't know how to feel about it necessarily. Of course, running back is always weird because, when you have a long-standing running back who was one of the better ones in Bengals history and Joe Mixon, you always feel kind of like weird, I guess, about a changing of the guard, but it was a necessary change. And I think both parties worked out for the best interest of each other. But I guess I want to ask, what position groups are you guys looking at that you're most excited about? I'll tell you guys right now, to start off, mine's kind of boring. I actually am looking forward to the punting battle. I'll be honest with you. I'm really curious, will they actually, like, if Austin McNamara actually performs, would they move on from Brad Robbins that quickly and replace him with a guy like Austin McNamara? I'm really curious. Or if Brad Robbins shows even a glimpse of improvement, but Austin McNamara is just killing him in practice, will they say, oh, we'll just go with Brad Robbins because he's been here longer? And I would absolutely hate that. I would absolutely hate that. What I'm saying is if you get a marginal improvement from Brad Robbins, but you get Austin McNamara beating him out in practice, but they say, hey, that improvement was enough for us to stick by him, that would bother me. That would bother me a little bit. That's similarly what happened. And I get it. This guy shot himself in the foot a little bit. But you remember when we drafted Jake Elliott?
Yeah.
You spent a premium pick on a guy like Jake Elliott. And then he struggles, and then you choose Randy Brown? Was it Randy Brown over him?
Randy Bullock.
Randy Bullock.
Why did I say Randy Brown? Randy Bullock over him, and then what happens? And then Jake Elliott goes on a kick a 58-yarder or whatever it was, something
He's been
dumb.
good.
And he's been a mainstay in the NFL since then. Some guys don't start off hot. I'm just saying, maybe I'm guessing. Maybe I'm even making a case for Brad Robbins right now.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know, but I'm just saying it would bother me if Brad Robbins was to really start off were to make minimal improvements. But Austin McNamara is absolutely crushing it in practice. But they say, you know what, you've been with us for a little bit, so we're just going to stick by you. I just wouldn't. That would bother me. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to weigh in, or if there's a position group that you're looking forward to the most.
Yeah, mostly just kind of the D line rotation. I'm interested to see how much of the passing duty does Miles Murphy get over Sam Hubbard as they kind of transition a little bit and share that load for going forward, trying to get more pass rush help next to Trey. Maybe Sam kicks inside a little bit and plays that while Murphy stays outside. Looking to see, curious, how does that rotation with Chris Jenkins and BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankins kind of work out? And what kind of front are they playing? Do they mix things up a little bit to try and, like you said, compensate for the lack of a true nose tackle? I know they have McKinley Jackson. I know they have guys who have manned that spot in small spots before, right? But not a DJ Reader, Damon Harrison type nose tackle body there. Maybe they do something different with their alignment to try and accentuate everybody's abilities, but also compensate for that lack of true nose tackle body size. So yeah, just really interested to see how that D-line rotation works out and kind of who steps up as that secondary and tertiary pass rusher to Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah. One thing I want to say. How about Dax Hill?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying anything at all.
What happened?
I just saying people.
Something?
No, people are making a big deal today. He had a nice breakup in practice, playing outside corner.
DJ Turner did too.
I'm not saying it. I'm just saying they said Dax Hill has been showing up.
I hope Dax Hill balls out at outside corner. I hope he puts all my worries and fears about outside corner to rest. I do.
Man, what if he acts? That would be one hell of a turnaround.
Yeah, no,
but you have a problem with your hands at that point, don't you? At some aspect, because
I don't know if you do, because I think DJ Turner has. So I think Dax ultimately has the higher ceiling just because of the measurables, right? Because of the size, because of the strength, because of the athleticism, because of the ball skills. DJ Turner is just. He has all the athletic ability that you want, right? But then even when he's in position, sometimes he's just a little bit smaller, can't quite reach as much as some of these other longer, bigger guys would. So that just naturally limits the upside you have with him. I think he has the higher floor and the lower ceiling than Dax, but also the Dax has like a really low floor and also a high ceiling potential. So if Dax is that lottery ticket that hits, that's great. And if not, then I think DJ Turner is going to be fine as, corner 2 for another year or 2 or 3
or 5.
Yeah, I feel like DJ Turner is going to be a solid player in the league. He's just never going to be that shut down corner or guy who can always, sometimes you're just going to be in perfect position. And we know even when you have good defenders, right? Like when good offense beats good defense, right? If you have a perfectly thrown ball in the perfect place where you can't reach it, that's just part of the game.
You should talk about that more, though, because I feel like sometimes when you hear, oh, this guy might not be a shutdown corner in the league, it has such a negative reaction. And I think people got to understand.
There's only so few of them. There's like a handful, if that.
Right.
And we don't even – it's not like you're just lining up and playing man all the time. There's so much zone that's permeated so much of the league now, and there's so many different like match zone concepts where, especially out of like all the bunch formations that you're playing right now, there's so much combination. We talk about the communication issues. That's the communication issues is when you have those bunch formations, when you have those motions and you're like, hey, we're trying to figure out what our rules all dictate about who we're supposed to have based on how they release out of this bunch formation. That's where the communication stuff comes up.
And that communication stuff is so crazy. Obviously, I coach football now and we're putting in a whole new scheme, and there's a bunch. And if one person's a second late on the communication, somebody is wide the hell open. Right. So I think that's it's kind of interesting.
Well, you have the outside guy in the bunch, and then suddenly he comes around the other two guys and he comes on the inside. And now he's the inside guy, and you're like, well, I was already turned around taking the other guy because I was supposed to have him. And like you said, so that's a big part of it. But yeah, I feel like you said, sometimes people take that to heart in the wrong way, right? Where it's like besides Jalen Ramsey and not even Jalen Ramsey anymore,
Jair Alexander.
And that's the thing too, is you're up and down at corner play, right? So much of injury and interception luck and everything else. So out of like you said, Jair Alexander, AJ Terrell is a guy who's
Pat
like kind of
Surtain.
top. Pat Surtain might be the only one who I'm like, hey, you're in, you're out. I feel really good. Sauce Gardner probably. So those are the only guys I'd say are kind of in that conversation of like, hey, they could be shut down, but you're playing so much sides of field and not shadowing guys anymore. It's not really just like, oh, hey, it's Darrell Revis versus, AJ Green this week. Here we go.
Let's
Like,
shut down an entire side of the field and
right,
see what happens. I also want to remind everybody, if you guys could do us a favor, drop your comments down in the comment section. We want to make sure that we get to them. Your questions, your comments, your concerns. Marissa, if we can pull some up really quickly, or you can tell me what some of these are, or I can even get to some of them actually.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Michael Rolfe, our guy, is always in the comment section week after week. He's almost like an honorary member of the show at this point, right? He's always on State of the Jungle. He says, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new kickoff rules. I feel like Chase Brown is going to be the perfect returner or the undrafted free agent Burgess. Thoughts? Thanks. Evan, I'll let you touch on that.
Yeah, I thought the Kansas City special teams coach, I think this was a week or two ago, had some really interesting thoughts about this.
Yeah.
And I think I know a lot of people are kind of focused on like the returner aspect of things, right? And how that's going to change the game for them. But I see this the other way where he made the point of the kicker is going to be involved in a lot more plays now. Like being able to tackle as a kicker is going to be big. It's like, and if you have a guy who is a defensive back or linebacker or something or other who has kind of a bit of a kicking background, who can at least kick accurately, right? I feel like that's going to be the big cheat code, because that's almost like having an extra defender on the field. Like, right. That's almost like getting to play with like 11 and a half or 12 guys on defense.
It's having a free rusher.
Right.
Like that's all it is.
Yeah. So I feel like that's going to be kind of the big cheat code. And you might see the same way you get a guy like long snapper, stashed on there, or holder, just those like, hey, it's not like a tremendous, you got to go pay $10 million for a guy, but having one of the better guys there is really good. And you definitely need at least one. I feel like there might be that utility in like 7th round picks and priority free agents, where you say, hey, we don't think this guy's going to be like a long-term corner solution, but or this wide receiver, but he could be a Stanley Morgan for us, who also has a kicking background. And now, hey, he's a special teams ace and he can kick the ball for us. And we can also not be putting Evan McPherson or other kickers out there to get crushed by other guys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, because I think even the Jets special teams coordinator talked about how they expect to have so many more returns this year. So they're trying out everybody back there. Like nobody truly knows how it's going to be, or what the advantage is going to be. And, it's one of those things to where whoever does crack that code first will have an advantage. And, we talk about all the time, football is it's a 3-level sport, offense, defense, special teams. So whatever, kind of coordinator can get that upper hand first, that team's going to have success, because whether it's putting a guy with a kicking background might play safety or something for you, to get better field position, or whether it's having, maybe we start seeing your best players actually come back there and return punts or kicks again, whatever it is, whoever can kind of, lead the wave of that is probably going to see some success this year.
I also want to remind everyone, while you're here, make sure you guys head on over to the First Star Media Group YouTube channel if you're watching from there, and make sure you subscribe as well. Remember, every single thing we upload, when we're live, it's all simulcasted on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. On there, you guys keep up with In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. You can keep up with Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry. And of course, you can keep up with this ugly guy every single Wednesday. So for State of the Jungle. I wasn't talking about you.
Had to make sure
Evan looks at me. I'm saying, this ugly guy right here. You get this. And, at least we didn't get in the comments this week. Oh my God, Evan, your eyes are so amazing.
Not this week. That's all right. There's always next week.
But I want to get to about 2 more questions before we head out of here. One of the questions that I want to get to is Chad Walter. He says, which lineman is more likely to get cut? Jackson Carman or Deontay Smith? Deontay Smith was a big Logan guy, so I'll let Logan answer that question.
I think it's tough to answer that question, because like you said, I was such a fan of Deontay Smith coming out. Just, he had some of the longest arms, if not the longest arms in his draft class. And, I think that's just, one of those things you can't really teach. You either got him or you don't. So I think, the upside of that player is, tends to be a little higher. But I think if I really had to guess, it probably would be Smith, just because Carmen's always been the guy they went to in situations where they needed somebody, whether it's just, Smith hasn't been able to jump him in the depth chart or whatever it is. I liked him a lot coming out. He hasn't really had many opportunity to be anything. Maybe that's because he's terrible or he sucks in practice, whatever it is. But I just think, playing, when you look at it like that, it just comes down to who's played and who hasn't. And Carman's played. He's played multiple positions. I'm sure he'd be the guy that'd stick around.
I think the draft capital kind of plays a big part in that too. And I think it's going to be kind of, we're at that transition point where you had the Hakeem Adenijis and the Deontay Smiths and the Christian Westermans and all
that was
of
my guy.
I know.
Christian
And
Westerman,
it just didn't work out, unfortunately. And it's always fun, the project guys that we have, the late round guys that we love for the offensive lineman. We know it's such an uphill battle to try and become a starting offensive lineman at
It's a small school too,
really. Yeah, so
East Carolina.
It's tough. We love these guys and we want the best for them. We want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
But sometimes after 4 or 5 years, it's like, hey, it might be time to look other ways and maybe give you an opportunity to maybe give you guys an opportunity to start somewhere else where you might stick around.
Yeah, and I believe that for sure. And the final question I want to get to, guys, before we head out of here is from our guy Parker Blake. He says, and Mason, I'm going to get to your question. I'll get to Mason's question first. If wide receiver 3 doesn't pan out, which player of the roster would you sign? Free agent like Randall Cobb or someone like that from a vet that is shorthanded? Here's what I'll say. If the Bengals wide receiver 3 does not pan out, burn it down. Let me just say
if Yoshi Voss and Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton are all bad this year, and Mike Gesicki
and Jedrick Jackson doesn't work out, burn it. Burn it down. Like, that's what you have to do. If that doesn't happen, there is some serious question. The Bengals tend to draft receiver well, and I feel like
Troy Walters is a great wide receiver coach, and Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks you'd have. You got some serious problems.
Oh, you got some serious problems. And so came in late by Parker, but what would you guys like to see the Bengals bring in trait-wise to the offensive line? More size. I know athleticism has been talking point for some. I would say athleticism. I think
athleticism.
We have a lot of size right now. You have a lot of size right now, but I think we can all feel very, very confidently in saying,
I won't even say they have to be athletic. I won't even say that, they need to be good at football. I just want to see them pick one in the first 3 rounds, not wait till round 4. Just for the first time in over a decade now, just pick one in like the 3rd round, pick one in the 2nd round. I know they probably won't, because the Bengals obviously have shown in free agency and the draft that they don't value the interior of the offensive line as much as other positions, which is, generally speaking, probably the accurate take to have, right? Wide receiver, corner, defensive end, tackle, quarterback, all these positions we probably would say are more valuable than guard. And it's one of those positions that you can generally hit on in mid to later rounds, but you definitely get better quality ones when you start swinging in round 2 and 3. You can still get some of those top tier guys. So I would just love to see them prioritize the interior just a little bit more.
Yes, I agree. And actually, I'll get to this last question, but our guy, Gary Jellison. Gary, once again, you're another honorary member of State of the Jungle. You hear almost every single week, and we greatly appreciate you, man. He says, is there enough athleticism on the Bengals offensive line to be a top offensive line? I would say right now, yeah, I think so. I don't necessarily think being a top offensive line, you have to be necessarily the most athletic. You have to just be able to win your reps and do your job, honestly. I think that's what it comes down to. I think I feel very, very confident, and the guys that the Bengals do certainly have on the offensive line, but certainly having more athleticism doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. What are your thoughts, Evan, if you have any?
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well there. It's a combined effort, right? Because who will we say, oh, these are the best offensive lines? Eagles, Lions, 49ers, but that's more of, there's different reasons for all this, right? But the overall offensive line performance, if you want to talk about, let's say, rushing efficiency, right? If you want to talk about sacks allowed, right? Well, so much of sack responsibility lies with quarterbacks, right? If you've got a hair trigger like Aaron Rodgers does, where he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, he throws the ball away at a higher rate than almost so many other people, because he's, that's how he's decided to live and say, hey, I've played this for a long time. I know what I can get away with, and when I need to just cut my losses and just throw it away and lived in it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that is it's different for quarterbacks who try and do things outside of the pocket versus the guys who are those pocket passers. And just as soon as the play is broken down or the pressure's there, then if they can't step up and throw, they're throwing it away, right? That would make the offensive line look better if the quarterback is not taking as many of those creation sacks, right? Or those feeling pressure sacks. It would make them look better if the running back is doing a good job of being patient, setting up his blocks like, oh, is it duo? Okay, well, that's, the running back needs to find a way to make the linebacker wrong, right? And kind of hit the right hole there. So that's not necessarily something up to the offensive line, but might be something that, gets brought up later as, hey, look at Chase Brown averaging 3 yards a carry. This offensive line needs to be better. Well, maybe Chase Brown needs to be better about hitting the right hole, right? And again, not going after Chase Brown, just saying, for example.
Are you sure about that?
I like Chase Brown. Chase Brown's fun. I liked him outside the Jacksonville game. He was real hyped for that game, and then he ended up having a really good game. That was fun. But there's just so many other factors that go into obviously quarterback performance and ownership on sacks, and then running back performance and kind of setting up blocks and doing stuff. And then again, scheme comes back to that too. So that's the tough part about evaluating offensive linemen, right? Is trying to divorce them from the system and from all the other external factors that weigh so heavily on how we measure offensive line performance, which is just, it's tough to do, right? Like it's tough to measure the individual impact on something like that. So yes, long story short, I do think they can, but it's going to be a combined effort between Joe Burrow being smart about when he throws the ball away, lives to survive to do another play, but also you don't want to take away from the Burrow magic. So there's a delicate balance to strike there.
100%.
And then getting the running backs, you got a committee approach. You got to get them in rhythm. You got to figure out how to use them all and when to deploy them. It's going to be a feeling out process.
100%.
So though I think they can this year, maybe not the years, they've got some new parts and new pieces, but going into the next season after, I don't see why not.
Well, I agree with everything that you said. I just want to take a time, a moment for a second. As we said, we won't be doing a live State of the Jungle episode next week. The crew will be off, and it's our first. It's going to be weird not doing a State of the Jungle show for the first time in over a year on a Wednesday. I'll probably be texting you boys like, what are you guys up to? Something. But I just want to say thank you to my team. That goes for Evan, Logan, Marissa, Daniel. None of this is possible without you guys. We obviously joke around and we have a shit ton of fun on this show. But I just really want to say thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for stepping up on the show each and every single Wednesday. It ain't easy to do anything in life consistently for over a year and not skip a beat. But I just want to say I thank you guys. I appreciate the support that you guys give me, whether it's us debating in our group chat comments or topics that we could be talking about for the upcoming show, or me and Evan disagreeing about who might be outside cornerback for the Bengals, or me yelling at Marissa for something something stupid. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I guess I don't give you guys enough credit outwardly, and I just kind of want to do that. And, it's going to suck not being here next Wednesday with you guys, but got some stuff to tend to. Marissa, definitely appreciate you always wearing the producer's hat and, really stepping up to the plate week in and week out for me and the crew, and Daniel as well. He is the man behind the scenes doing a lot of stuff, getting videos up and stuff like that. So just in a really appreciative mood for the entire team. And I'm looking forward to being back with you guys the week after next for another episode of State of the Jungle. And while we won't be live for State of the Jungle next week, we'll still have a clip coming to you. And do us a favor, guys, while you are here. If you like to keep up to date with our content and what we do, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live from the First Star Logistics Studio. Subscribe to the First Star Media Group YouTube channel and turn on post notifications so you can keep up with Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry, In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, and of course, State of the Jungle. But until next time, we are live.